Hello, lovelies. Welcome back to the confusion that is the tangent. We are on episode 8 right now, and I wanted to focus this episode on a big topic of discussion in the disabled community, which is disabled parking. Okay, so there's always a debate or drama when we get into this topic, and I figured I would share my point of view on this. So let's get into it. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quickest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I've been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is the tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. So before we get too deep into this discussion, debate, situation, I'm a wheelchair user, so this has really been a pretty lifelong discussion, and there are so many arguments to have here, and I've pretty much had them, so I thought I would just share some. But a couple things to think about in my situation with parking. First of all, I don't currently drive, so that's a big thing in how people put up signs and what the rules say, and so that's a thing to think about. Also, I am in a motorized wheelchair, so generally I'm relatively new setup is that I'm in my wheelchair in the car. It can fold, but we mostly try to avoid doing that because admin, but also for wheelchair well-being. And the more you fold them, the more used they get and thing. Anyway, so what that means is that our car is bigger, and we kind of need more space to get me out of the car because we use ramps and things. So let's keep that in mind when we go through these issues. So, one big thing I think is an issue is that there's no real accountability for people who disrespect the bays and park there when they don't need them, because all of those fine things are implemented by the center or the parking lot that they're in, and there's no real legal requirement to do that. It's center-based regulations, so that's problematic. But also you get people who, so many times we've had people say this, and it's oh, I'll be quick. Or when the security people question why you're parking there, and they try to be a good ally to the disabled community, people say things oh, I'll be quick, or I'm just going to wherever you're going, and you think that because you're gonna be 2 minutes that's fine, and that's an acceptable reason to be parking in bays that are not put there for you. And that just makes me think that you're not really considerate of why the bays are there. I get very judgmental with these things, but at the same time, so because people like behave this way with regards to disabled bays, the solution that a lot of places have come to, which I also feel have had basically zero consultation with actual disabled people or like people in the disabled community, because the solution that people come to is putting things in the bays, and that is an insane solution to me. Why are we putting giant human-sized cones in disabled bays to keep them open? That doesn't make them open. That makes them less accessible bays than regular bays, because people are now not there to move the cones if you do need to park there. What if I am a disabled driver and I can't get out the car to move the bays? Like, there's so many things that are like logistically a problem with that solution, and I just feel like we could have had a 5-minute conversation and not had that be a problem. Like, we could have found better solutions, but it's alright. Like, we're gonna move forward, I guess. But my opinion on these disabled bays, like, it's a huge factor in our lives, okay? And like, to me, I think that the big consideration from all sides is like, what is the function of the bay and which needs are being addressed by having these bays, right? So I think that they are designed and like implemented for essentially for ease of access. Things like the space that you need to actually get out of your car, or like the ability to walk far distances, or even like safety when like a disabled person is staying in the car. You know, you don't want to be like decades away from where the shop entrance is. To me, it's not really about what your disability is in this context. To me, it's about what your needs are. And so I think that that's an interesting space to go into, because technically, if you are disabled, you are entitled to be in that bay. So you can make that argument, and that's a fair argument to make, but I feel like the argument and the discussion is way more nuanced than that. Like, I think there just has to be like an awareness and a cognizance that there are not enough bays for every disabled person. I also think we need to have an awareness that just because you don't necessarily look disabled, because we have people who have invisible disabilities, that like you are also potentially entitled and like justifiably using the bay. So you can't instantly get grumpy when you see somebody like park in a bay and get out the car with ease. We need to maybe take a second to just consider what's happening, and like consider what the options are in this. I have some stories that I want to kind of share, because I think there's so many ways we can look at this, right? So why I chose this topic for the episode was that I went to a shopping center, like to get food and stuff, like normal adulting things, and we went in, and when we came out, there was somebody parked next to us in like another disabled babe. So I wasn't immediately annoyed by this person. She was sitting in her car. Like the car was on, which is interesting to me. I feel kind of detective like in these situations where I'm kind of trying to assess whether you are like validly in the bay. But so this woman, like, she was parked in the bay, which is fine. I'm like, I'm not gonna judge her instantly. And then, like, she was so close to our car that my mom had to reverse in order to get the ramp out so that I could get in the car. And so I was sitting kind of very, like, openly, blatantly, loudly disabled in that space, because that's sometimes how I handle things. And this woman, like, ignored me, and that annoys me, because in my mind, if you are justifiably in the bay, you're gonna engage with me, right? Like, we as disabled people and people in the community, we're kind of taught and encouraged to justify that we are disabled, and like, hey, no worries, like, I'm in here legally or whatever, like, don't judge me because I am actually disabled, like, don't hate on me. And she didn't do that. Like, she just ignored me. And then, like, I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, and then a man came out and he passed her like a cup of coffee. And then she kind of was getting ready to reverse and leave. So I don't know that whether that man got in her car, or like, I'm not sure if he was disabled, or I don't know what happened, but like, that looked sus to me. It just got me thinking, like, we need to talk about this, because what is happening? And it's a frustration that I think a lot of disabled people have, and we don't really talk about it so much because it ends up in arguments. Because I'm not trying to say that my disability is like, I'm more disabled than you. Like, that's not the argument. It's about, do you essentially need to be parking here? Are you able to park in a normal bay and have that not impact your ability to, like, get out the car, to get into the place that you're going to? So that's that situation. I also think you can see when disabled people have parked. I'm not saying they were bad drivers or like bad parkers. I'm saying when you have a disabled person in your car who needs the bay, generally people will park to one side. There are like indicators of disabledness that standard non-disabled people wouldn't necessarily pay attention to or see. So I'm just saying that maybe the detective work needs to continue. I did have like a funny story though, because my brother-in-law, when he was newly in our circle, he was working on like being a good ally to disabled people, and he parked somewhere and saw a guy sitting in his car and was ready to be like, this is a disabled bay. And he did actually say that to people, and I really appreciate it when people do go to be allies and to back the arguments that people need to be respectful of why these bays exist. And pretty awkward for him. That guy was a disabled person, and he was a double amputee, and that's funny. And the guy took it really well. He was like, I am actually disabled. I don't have legs, but, and my brother-in-law almost died of embarrassment, but the guy in the car did thank him for defending the bears. So, all in all, a good learning experience, I guess. And then there's some interesting things that I just assume that other people don't assume. Or it's a good reflection of having successfully advocated, because when I go out with friends and we have to park somewhere, a lot of times people have been like, where are we gonna park? And I'm sort of always like, what do you mean? We're gonna park in the disabled bit, obviously. They kind of don't realize that they can do that, because I feel like I've successfully embedded in them that those parking bays don't exist for you if you are not a disabled person. Like, don't park there. That's always a bit of a laugh. A very beautiful experience that I had though, which is kind of funny to talk about here, because this is kind of welcome to the debate and the discussion and all the fights. But this one time I went for dinner with my friend, and he was driving our car, and we parked in the disabled bay, and this girl, so obviously there are logistics, right? Like, it takes longer to get out the car, you have to organize the ramps and things. There are things that you have to do that are extra. So my friend was doing all of the things. Harvey was doing the things, he was getting the ramps out and stuff. And there was a girl who was like 8 years old maybe, who was standing and like watching. And we both saw her and we're waiting to see what happened, and she asked her mom something, and you could see that it was about us. And her mom came over to us and said, do you mind if my daughter asks you a question? And that was beautiful, to manage her curiosity in that way. That this mom recognized that my experience is a valuable thing to share with her daughter, and she's already curious about it, so let's just ask people. It's okay to approach us in a polite way and not expect us to share our whole life story. And she asked some question. I think it was something about why we have the ramps and I don't just sit in the car with other people. And so I answered the question. I don't remember what my answer was, but that was really beautiful of an engagement. The fact that she asked that question and engaged with me and got to get the real information from me. She kind of learned a lot of lessons that day, and it really took like 4 minutes of a conversation. I think that that's a wonderful place to end the discussion for now, because there are so many things that we can say about like disabled parking and where things go and why they're there. But I think that was a beautiful way to understand that it's okay to ask things and it's okay to be curious with respect and compassion. I'm really super happy about that mom. Props to her for creating a space of learning and an opportunity to grow, because really that's what we need, for everybody to feel welcome and for people to gain understanding, is that we need to communicate about how we feel about the things that are put in place to support us, because as we know, everything in disability is nuanced and complex, and there are 5,000 layers to every situation, and that's gonna take more time and more learning than just a couple minutes in a parking lot. So keep engaging. Don't park in the bays if you don't need them, because you're probably gonna have a disabled person or an ally coming for you. Just think about where you park, people, and think about why you're doing it. Having those places makes people feel seen. That feels dramatic to say, but it is that. Like, you are appreciating that I come out and go to places. You're recognizing that my experience is different, but it's equally valid, and that you do need to cater for me as a disabled person. Think about that the next time you pick a parking space. And then in true tangent fashion, just to end off like on a lighter, maybe not lighter, but on a different note. So you might not know that I'm a Swiftie. You might not know that Taylor Swift's new album just came out. So I'm still busy processing everything that is, and all the information that we have just received. And I just want to check in on my fellow Swifties. Are you okay? Are you hydrating? Are you eating? If you are not a Swiftie and you have us in your life and we are low-key unhinged currently, like, maybe just check on us regularly and just be supportive as we go through this process. So I think I'm just gonna be in this process for a very long time. But it's okay. It is incredible. I'm so grateful and happy that we have this piece of art. It's just gonna take a minute to unpack and understand everything that we've been given. But I hope you have a beautiful day, regardless of where you fall on the Swiftie spectrum. And I'll see you in the next one.